The crowd in the frontier square jeered as three young Apache girls swung from the beams, dust swirling beneath their bare feet. The noose ropes creaked in the dry wind, their faces bruised, eyes wide with fear. It was another morning in Red Hollow, a town where mercy had long since turned to dust. The hangman reached for the lever when a single voice thundered through the silence. "Stop! I'll buy them." Every head turned. The man who spoke wasn't a lawman, nor a preacher come to save souls. He was a rancher, weathered by sun and years of hard land, and his name was Jed Mallery. The folks in Red Hollow knew him. Quiet, steady, never one for trouble. But the look in his eyes that morning promised trouble all the same. Before we ride into this tale of redemption, grit, and the cost of mercy, hit that like button and subscribe, partner, because this one's worth the trail dust. Now, Red Hollow was no place for kindness. Dust bit into every wound, and the people there learned early that looking away was easier than doing right. But Jed Mallery had never been good at looking away. That morning, he rode into town just to sell a few head of cattle and leave before the storm rolled in from the plains. Fate, however, had its own plans. Near the gallows, three Apache girls hung by their ankles. No older than 16, their hair tangled with dirt and dried blood. The sheriff and his men stood nearby, passing a bottle of rye whiskey, laughing about justice served. Jed's stomach turned. He'd seen this before, soldiers burning villages, calling it law. He'd seen mothers cry while men cheered. It was a sight that never left a man's soul. He turned to leave, but something caught his eye, a mark burned into the shoulder of the oldest girl. A crescent scar shaped like a hawk's wing. Jed froze. He knew that mark. It was the same one carved into his own arm, a brand of brotherhood, given to him years ago when he was dying on Apache land. A memory flashed before him, a night in a canyon, fevered and bleeding. An Apache chief's daughter kneeling beside him, pressing herbs to his wound, whispering through broken English, "Hawk protect you." And now, that same girl hung before him, older, bruised, but unmistakable. His pulse pounded in his ears. Without thinking, Jed's voice broke the silence. "Stop. I said I'll buy them." The sheriff blinked, startled, then barked a laugh. "You'll what?" Jed dismounted, boots sinking into the dust. He dropped his rifle to the ground and unbuckled his belt, pulling free the leather purse at his hip. "You heard me. I'll pay whatever fine you claim they owe." The crowd murmured, half amused, half confused. The sheriff's grin faded. "Ain't for sale, rancher." Jed's hand twitched toward his revolver. "Everything's for sale in Red Hollow." For a long moment, no one breathed. Then the sheriff's gaze faltered. The weight of Jed's stare, cold and steady as a drawn gun, made even the drunks quiet down. Coins clattered in the dirt as Jed emptied the purse at his boots. "That's gold," he said. "Now cut them down." The hangman hesitated. Then, slowly, he lowered the lever and reached for his knife. The girls dropped into the dust, coughing and trembling. Jed tossed his coat toward them. "Get up," he said softly. "You're free." That night, the storm came. Lightning ripped across the prairie sky as Jed's wagon rolled out of town, wheels splashing through the mud. Inside the wagon bed, wrapped in Jed's old coat, the three Apache girls huddled together, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. The oldest, the one marked by the hawk, sat silent, staring into the rain. Jed drove for miles without a word. What could he say? How did a man speak after buying back a debt to his own soul? Only when the thunder eased did he finally speak, his voice low. "You saved me once. Don't reckon you remember." The girl turned, her dark eyes sharp despite her fatigue. "My father was Hawk Chief," she said quietly. "You white soldier hurt in Canyon. We find you." Jed nodded slowly. "Your people found me. Fed me. Your father spared me when he could have ended me." The girl said nothing for a while, only studying him. Her sisters leaned against her, half asleep. Finally she murmured, "My father die for mercy. Men kill him same day." Jed's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," he said, but the words felt hollow. When they reached the ranch, the prairie stretched wide and empty, fences, open land, and a sky heavy with memory. The girls stepped down, their bare feet sinking into the mud. Jed led them to the cabin porch, his lantern flickering in the rain. "You safe here," he said softly. "Ain't much, but it's honest." The oldest looked out across the land. "Safe for us," she whispered. "Never safe." And she was right. Because by dawn, smoke rose again on the horizon. Men from Red Hollow were coming, torches, rifles, and rage. The sheriff wanted his property back. Jed stood by the corral, tightening his rifle strap. The girls stood beside him. "You'll ride out," he said. "Head for the hills." The oldest shook her head. "We not run. We fight." She reached under her shawl and drew a small hunting knife, its handle carved with an eagle's feather. "Our blood not for sale again." Jed looked at her, the fire in her eyes, the strength in her stance, and for the first time in years, he felt something he'd thought long dead. Hope. The riders came just after sunrise, dust clouds rising before them like smoke from hell. Jed stood at the gate alone, rifle resting on his shoulder. "They're under my protection," he said as the sheriff's men circled. The sheriff spat tobacco into the dirt. "You can't protect what ain't yours." Jed cocked his rifle. "You'd be surprised." The first shot shattered the morning. The ranch exploded into chaos. Bullets flying, horses screaming, men shouting. Jed dropped behind the fence, firing steady, each shot cutting through the storm of noise. The girls darted through the tall grass, moving like shadows. One of the younger ones stumbled, a bullet grazing her leg. The oldest dragged her back toward the cabin, eyes fierce with fire. Jed took a round through the shoulder but kept fighting, blood soaking his sleeve. When his rifle clicked empty, he drew his revolver. The world blurred with pain and smoke. Then, through the chaos, the girl with the hawk mark stepped into view. She held the hangman's rope she'd taken from town. With a cry that cut through thunder, she swung it like a whip, striking a man clean off his horse. "We are not slaves," she shouted, her voice echoing across the field. The riders hesitated. The wind rose. The storm broke overhead, lightning flashing white. For a heartbeat, time stood still. Then, one by one, the riders turned, fear in their eyes, and rode back into the storm. When dawn came, Red Hollow was quiet. The sheriff was gone, and his men scattered. Only the wind moved over the plains. Jed lay on the porch, shoulder bandaged, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Inside, the three girls slept by the hearth, wrapped in blankets. The oldest sat beside him, silent, watching the rising sun. Its gold light caught the hawk-shaped scar on her shoulder, the same mark burned into Jed's arm. "You ever wonder why your father spared me?" Jed asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "Because he saw in you what no one saw in him." "What's that?" Jed asked. "A man who still remembers mercy." Jed nodded, his throat tight. The word lingered in the air like prayer. The girl stood, her gaze sweeping over the land, the fences, the open sky, the promise of something new. "We'll stay," she said softly. "We'll work this land. Maybe it forgive both of us." Jed's eyes closed, a tired smile forming. "It already has." The camera of the mind pulls back, over the ranch, the field still scarred from battle, the three girls beginning to rebuild, a man finding peace in the soil where mercy finally took root. And that's how one rancher bought back 3 lives, and found the peace of his soul he'd buried years before. Sometimes mercy costs everything, but it gives you back more than gold ever could. If this story hit you deep, partner, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of the West, where every scar, every choice, and every act of courage leaves its mark.